Welcome to Canvas Commentary, the podcast where art meets conversation. I'm your host, Derek Jackson, and this is the space where creativity gets personal. Each episode, we sit down with artists, creators, and visionaries to talk about their stories behind the work. The inspiration, the struggles, the process, the passion that drives them to create. From brushstrokes to bold ideas, nothing is off the canvas here. Whether you're an artist yourself, a collector, or someone who just loves hearing authentic creative journeys, you're in the right place. So settle in, open your minds, and let's dive into the world of art behind the art. And if you're an artist, creator, or someone with a story to tell, I'd love to have you on the show. Head over to derekjacksonartist.com, click on Canvas Commentary Podcast, and fill out the guest form to apply. It's completely free, and I'm always looking for creative voices to feature on the podcast. This is Canvas Commentary. Our first guest here on Canvas Commentary is Bonnie McBee Fisher. She is a collage artist located in Harrisonburg, Virginia. She's a local artist like I am. She does collage of animals and people, and we talk about that in the podcast. She is a wonderful person to talk to. I love whenever I get to sit down and talk with Bonnie. We never have a dull moment. That's why I wanted her to be on the guest podcast, the first guest podcast of my podcast. So if you want to follow her, go to BonnieMF.art on Instagram. Follow her if you like what she says. I'm going to put her pictures on the podcast video. So I hope you guys enjoy, and here start the video. Yeah. How are you doing, Miss Bonnie?
Good. How are you, Derek?
Good. I'm doing well. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Canvas Commentary. So I have a question, or I got a couple of questions.
Okay.
Where are you located?
You mean physically right this moment or in
Yes.
general?
Where physically right now?
I'm actually in my kitchen dining room area. It's a long rectangle, sort of.
Okay. And in what city?
Harrisonburg.
Harrisonburg. How long have you done art?
Oh, I can't remember not doing art. Seriously, I cannot remember not doing art.
Me too. Yeah. When are you represented by a gallery?
No, I do it purely for my own pleasure and entertainment. I'm one of those odd creatures.
Okay.
And I've had people tell me this can't be true. I really don't care what anybody else thinks as long as I'm happy. So obviously, I'm not in the business of trying to monetize my art. This is purely self-interest, self-help, making me happy.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So when did you first realize art was more than a hobby to you?
Oh gosh. So it's always been really, really important.
Okay.
Always. I can remember times where it didn't get prioritized because of other things going on in my life, but it was always lurking in the background.
Okay.
So when I was working full time and crazy and busy and, living with a camera as my art, I kept saying, oh, just wait. When you retire, you can do art every day. And that's actually what's happened.
Oh, so like retirement helped you do
Well,
art.
no, it didn't help. do art, but it gave me the freedom to spend as much time as I wanted to.
Okay, that's kind of what I was going
Yeah.
through. Oh, so for the audience, describe your art style as long as you want.
So currently, I'm a paper artist. I've always been a paper artist, and I do hand cut collages.
Okay.
And a need and a love for detail, and my collages do show that. I get wrapped up in cutting very, very tiny pieces of paper and editing them and gluing them, and you know, I just get lost in detail. I love detail. And so I primarily do animals and plants. I love birds. I do a lot of birds.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. So, what's your favorite bird to do? Mine is a cardinal. I always love
and
doing
we have
cardinals.
talked about that cardinal.
Yes.
So cardinals, I think actually my favorite are woodpeckers.
Oh,
Woodpeckers.
what?
Although I'm getting ready, I have plans in my head for a new hawk that I'm
Oh,
very, very excited about. So,
what about woodpeckers? The detail, the what about them makes you drawn to them?
so I so if you've ever spent time looking out a window, watching a tree and watching birds, I just like how the little woodpeckers just sort of, you know, entertain themselves. And they're not territorial. The little ones are not territorial. They don't, really care about the other birds as long as they can get their little insects and keep on going. And they just sort of like are busy little worker bees. And I like that.
Wow. So you talked about doing nature and you like promoting and showing nature through your art, but what kind of emotions do you put into your art and what constantly keeps coming up?
By emotions, explain, give me a little bit more context on what you
Well,
mean by.
like I do a lot of longings, I do a lot of sadness, I do a lot of um, is your emotion just joy that you put into your art, or uh, do you put some negative emotions in there? Uh,
No, I tend to be pretty much on the positive side. I find nature to be very calming.
okay.
That time you get into that green blue spectrum, you're sort of working with cool colors and it's sort of calming, and so there's there is no anger or angst. I wish I could do that. That's just my brain is at the moment. It's just sort of in this, let's be quiet and see what's out there lurking behind that tree.
So did you, when you started or when you were doing full time and you were working full time at corporate, did you produce any art and what kind of art did that look like?
So there was a long period of time that it was just the camera. I would carry the camera around,
Okay.
and you know, it was film camera, then it moved to digital. I mean, so there's always been a camera and always been nature. I have always done a lot of handmade cards, and especially around the holidays. And that took many different forms, from lino cut to silk screen to photographs. So I've done a wide variety of art styles while I was working. So it was sort of like exploring new fads in art just to have something to do. I never really settled on anything specific because I didn't have the time and I didn't have the space to, bust out a lot of stuff all over the place.
So talking with, so we're both members of the Arts Council in Harrisonburg. Talking with a couple of photographers there, they said that, and I do photography, but I don't have the mindset for photography. Um, but they were talking about how uh, that it's a very personal and private uh, emotion that you try to connect with the subject. Did
Oh,
you have that? Or were you photographing animals, or were you doing people, or everything?
so as I mentioned earlier, I really like detail. I
Uh-huh.
really So a lot of my photography, I had the opportunity because of some friends to have access to private gardens, essentially. And so I could go in and, I could get as close as I wanted to a plant. And so I really did do a lot of extreme detail in
Okay.
photography. And that always just made me excited. I mean, think about it. When you create art, if you're not getting excited by whatever that output is, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah. I take that as a brushstroke with visual arts. If there's a paintbrush stroke that doesn't make you happy, then we're lucky we can paint over it. But every brushstroke should give you that happiness, even if it's talking about anger, like joy, sadness. Like you should be, it should be a momentum of happiness, I think. But you never know. Uh, how much painting do you do with the paper cutting?
So I create all my own papers,
Okay.
whether it's literally painting them or painting over top of monoprints. I got into jelly prints before the Jelly Arts Company ever existed. The first monoprints I did, I made my own Knox gelatin plates. They had to go in the refrigerator because they were not shelf stable at that point in time. This was, probably close to 20 years ago. And, so I started making these papers and I've always really liked printing. I've always liked different processes with printing. So, you reach a point where you have all this stuff and then what do you do with it? So that's sort of how I found my way back to collage. I have done many forms of collage throughout my life. But, once I realized that I could start drawing and using that drawing as a pattern and then taking my papers and creating, that was what I did and what I do. And sometimes, like this morning, I actually
Yeah.
painted some papers because I needed something sort of special, and I didn't have time or the inclination to pull out the whole jelly plate and go down that whole rabbit hole. Because when I start printing like that, I could print easily for 6 hours, and then I've got enough papers to last me, a long time.
Yeah. How long does a usual studio session take you? Is it 6 hours, or because
um,
mine is like 4. I
like
do not have the patience for
You don't have the patience for more than 4 hours?
it.
Oh my. No, if I'm in the groove, I could be there for a really long time. Now, I do stop and go get stuff to eat, and I'm frequently eating, with hands covered in glue. Um, but as long as I'm not trying to problem solve, which happens a lot in art, it goes with it. I can go. I would love to do 6-hour days.
Oh,
That doesn't
wow.
always happen, but I would love to do that.
So from start to finish, we talked about how long, but what does the process look from idea and concept to it being finished on the page?
You mean how long does it take?
Just describe
Oh,
the
describe.
process.
Um, at this point in time, I'm fairly fortunate. I have more ideas than I can execute.
Yes.
So sometimes those ideas hang out for a while. But once I have an idea and a size, I sit down and I try to do a fairly complete drawing for a couple reasons. One, I need to have a pattern to cut from. So I just don't go, oh, I'm going to cut a bird and just start cutting shapes. I actually draw it out, use tracing paper, and then get started. I also do a background. I try to have some concept of what that background's going to look like. The backgrounds are 99% either deli paper or something called tea bag paper. So it's a thinner paper. It goes down depending on how I put it down. It can go down pretty smoothly. It works really well to put the heavier paper on top of. I'm working on wood,
Oh,
wood canvases, panels.
okay. Yeah.
Um, and then I get started. And sometimes when I get started, so I'll start and build all of the elements. So even
Okay.
though I know what the background's going to look like, I don't do anything with the background until I have all of my elements created and glued. And I have several different pressing techniques to get those nice and flat and as secure as I can. And then once I have all the elements done, then I start with the background papers and the elements and placing them. And I'll find sometimes that, oh, well, that doesn't quite work the way I want to. And I'll either, take an element apart and remake it, or I'll, draw something completely new. I run into problems when I get too excited and I start making elements before I've actually finalized the drawing. So,
Oh,
but, excitement, you can't
do
help
you
it.
do you use your photography uh, with the paper? Like, does a photo, you're like, hey, I want to reproduce this in paper? Is that kind of the concept? Or do you just say, oh, I want to draw a bunny rabbit?
So I do refer to photographs quite a lot, whether they're mine or other sources. I do have the collage I just completed does reference an old photograph, but it has been changed and added to. So I do like to go back to those photographs, especially I have a pretty large collection of flower photographs. So if I'm doing flowers or something, I probably will start there. It
Mhm.
just, but yeah, I don't leave everything up to my total imagination. I want it to look a little bit realistic,
Mhm.
but it's not going to be, exact.
Okay. Um, so art has been a big part of your life, but what would your 16-year-old self think of your art now?
I think that person would be going, "Oh, really? 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 You've loosened up so much. I can't believe that you're concerned that bird really doesn't look like a bird, or that deer really doesn't look like a deer." So I think my 16-year-old self was stuck in realism,
Okay.
wanted to have a really clean, realistic style, but that's not how my brain works. I can see it. So I've had this conversation before. What I see in my head when I start to draw is not necessarily what ends up on the canvas. And I'm at the point in my creative journey that that's okay. What's in my
Yeah.
head is great. I love it. It gives me the detail I need, but there's going to be a translation as it moves from my head through my hands to the canvas. And I'm happy with what I get. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, because I there's certain I've noticed with creating myself, there's certain gray areas in the mind that you haven't developed, but you do know that you want this dragon here, but you don't know how the tail is going to work. And it's kind of it's hard to process that with the your mind because it says it's going to go one way, but it doesn't work when you start drawing it. Like, d does that make sense? Yeah.
It does. And the one thing that I have found in the well since the pandemic, the one thing that I have found since the pandemic, so the last 6 years, is that the more I draw, the easier the whole creative process gets and the more comfortable I am with my art. So I think before when I was working full time and there were other commitments, I think there was such a stop and start
Hmm.
that made it problematic. I have lots of friends that do journals and, they keep paint journals and drawing journals. I can't do that. I cannot bring myself to sit down and draw every day, but I can sit down and do art every day.
Yes.
So that continual sort of like practice, it is a practice, whether it's in a journal or it's on a piece of canvas, it's still practice. So that daily exercise stretches your brain and you start to figure out, oh, well, this worked. If it
Yeah.
worked in the last piece, I can probably, modify it and work it in this next piece. So,
Yeah. So what fears do you have that you've had to overcome as an artist?
so you do realize your lighting just
I
changed.
know. I was trying to just act like it didn't happen. Let
Well,
me
it made the yellows look really bad and it was giving you this really, really hard shadow. You still have a shadow, but the color in the back better.
I know. The other one is on like 2 bars right now. I don't know why they don't last longer, but I have to figure out where to plug them in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what your question was.
Okay. What fear have you had to overcome as an artist?
Well, I think every artist is always a little concerned about if I put my art out there, it's going to be judged, and will that mean I'll be judged? But, since I'm not selling my art, I've sort of eliminated that sort of stumbling block.
Mhm.
So at this point, there's really nothing scary, because I'm very selective on who I actually open up about. Okay, these are, my feelings or my challenges or whatever.
Mhm. So I guess you, like me, I create art for myself and not for an audience. Is that true?
Right, that's very true.
Yeah. I it doesn't make any sense to make something from you and expect something and create these barriers from what people say or what they might say. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I've always created for myself. What, how do you describe creating something for yourself?
Well, that's easy. I just have to make myself happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is in the way so my insight to my creation process has changed drastically from even that 35 or 40-year-old, even that 50-year-old. I mean, it's changed drastically since I've sort of realized it doesn't have to be perfect. I can always do it over, start again, throw it away. So once I gave up that idea that it had to be perfect, it works pretty smoothly. I mean, every now and then there's something, I'll create something and I may not be in love with it, but I can still find elements of it that make me happy, or I can say, oh, I learned from this.
Mhm.
So yeah, I go about it quite backwards, maybe.
What concept are you obsessed with right now?
Concept as in art form or concept as in execution?
Uh, an idea, something that you pull from constantly. It sounds like nature's one of you're never not inspired from. Do you have any other themes or things
Uh,
that you're obsessed with? Jelly prints, I hear.
well, actually, I haven't really printed anything for about 8 months now.
Oh, wow.
I did a big printing. I'm working on an upcoming show, and I did a big printing to get ready for that. So I would have a color palette for my papers that would work across all of the pieces. Um, so really, I think to answer that best, I'm going to spin it just a little bit and
Okay.
say moving to Harrisonburg has been amazing because of the artistic community. You know, I came from an area that there were artists, there were people out there, and it just did not feel engaging. And the other thing that was not available was to actually go and look at art. So my art has actually expanded my curiosity. Oh, I want to try that. Oh, that's a cool idea. It springs into this idea. Just from going and looking at all of the art that's available in downtown Harrisonburg and the surrounding area. I mean, I got really cool. I went into a business the other day, and they have a metal wall that they display art on, and I walked away going, oh, okay, I got this idea, and I could do X, and ooh, like what would it take, and and it would be something that would not be like my normal nature stuff, and it's just got me really excited.
Oh,
So
wow.
we'll have to see if I ever, pull that out and actually do it.
Yeah. What what piece changed you as an artist, that can be your your personal piece? Mine would be Gerard Richter's Station 1980. I saw it at a museum of art in North Carolina, and I was like, "This is what I want to do." What piece can you think of on the top of your head right now that changed your life?
Oh, I've got many pieces running around my head. So when I was in college, I do have 2 degrees in history, but
Okay.
as an undergraduate, I spent a lot of time in art history. So, you know, I yeah, many things.
Uh-huh.
From childhood, Life magazine was really uh, prevalent in my world, and that's how I first got introduced to Andrew Wyeth and the
Okay.
whole Wyeth family. And I have found that amazing, especially as I've gotten older here in the last year, I've actually been able to see 2 different installations of Andrew's work. And that's always very very cool. So I also my favorite painter when I was in college was um, Saturday Afternoon in the Park by Surratt. And when I got to see it in Chicago, and I knew it was a big piece, but until I walked in and realized just how massive that piece was, and it's all done in pointillism, I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God, how did you do that? And I love detail, but how? So, I've been very fortunate that I've always, even when I was working, I always tried to take advantage to, oh, I can slip into a gallery before I leave town, or I can go in a day early and, pay for a hotel night to be able to look at something cool.
Yeah. So, what's next for you creatively?
Well, as I mentioned, I do have a show coming up, and this is actually my first solo show. I've never felt compelled to put a
Uh,
show together. and it's happening in August, and I still have a little bit more work to do, but it's coming together nicely, and I'm very excited by that. And so,
What advice would you give emerging artists?
find a good mentor. Like, if you really want to go into the business of, I want to sell my art, then you need to find a couple people that are very engaged in that space, know what that space looks like. This is how they have succeeded in that, if that's your goal. If your goal is just, I want to improve my painting technique, find find a painter that you like, talk to people, talk to as many artists as you can, because even if it's not your discipline, if it's an honest, full, robust conversation, you're going to come away with inspiration and ideas that then you can translate into your own work. So don't be shy, don't work in isolation. I think that is quite common for a lot of artists to go,
Yes.
I can hang out in the studio and entertain myself, but you really can increase your excitement and your creativity and your output by engaging others around you. So find a good mentor or two or three or four.
So in our podcast, I have a couple of segments. The first segment is Art Crush. So whose art and who or what has influenced your artistic journey the most?
Oh, that's so hard to answer.
Yeah. Is
Um,
there any close friends who helped you? Uh, Teachers? Um, my
oh,
art.
not the one and done sort of type. So my father actually drew and painted,
Oh.
but his passion. I do have a painting in the studio that hung in my parents' house for as long as I could remember, that he did when he was 18. He was working in the oil fields, just hanging out. Like, at that point in time, in the 50s, lightning strikes and you had these, wooden containers. So someone had to be on site in the tank field all the time. And how he spent the night was painting. But that wasn't his passion. He was very good at it, but that wasn't his passion. So for a long time, I struggled with, my art didn't look like his art.
Mhm.
Uh, I gotta, you know, I think maybe my encouragement and my insight and my inspiration has come from, I have two very close girlfriends. They're both very different. They're both very creative. One is a builder. She does amazing work. I mean, she's been sewing since she was a kid and she knows how to tailor. And I just, it's just amazing. She's a very good color theorist. And so it's always fun to hang out with her. And then my
Say
other
that
girl,
again. I think it went out.
a color theorist.
No, what's her name?
Oh, I didn't give you her name. I just
Oh,
said my girl. You want me to give you her
oh, well, if she has an Instagram, we can tag her.
name? Does not. She does not.
Okay,
Um, so so she loves color. So she plays
okay,
with color. Color's important. So, it was fun to just go into fabric stores, and I don't sew. I don't have any desire to sew, and just watch her play with colors. And yeah.
wow.
My other girlfriend, she is very creative in many ways, but she's the one who has the gardens that I've photographed the most. And
Mhm.
it's always fun to be with her because she finds joy and beauty in everything. So to watch her outside and she decides that she must have a bouquet, in every room, and she starts picking these flowers and she's arranging them in her hands and she just lays them down in a vase, and oh my. So I think those two people really have been the most inspirational because they are so joyful in the way they create.
Mm. That's a
Yeah.
good, that's a good, that's a good observation for people because my initial, when I created this question, I thought very shallowly, and maybe that's just me, but I was thinking people would be like, "Oh, I like Monet. He makes me happy." But we're here to talk about deeper things, so I like that.
My love of Andrew Wyatt. I mean, what can I say?
Andrew Wyatt. Um, so two on a easel. So talk to me about your last piece and talk to me about your uh, favorite piece that you've created. I have them. I will put them on Instagram and I will put them on the video. So, which one is your favorite?
So my favorite is a very small piece called Chit Chat, and it's two house wrens, and it's actually made it for my girlfriend, the quilter, and her husband.
All
And
right.
it's sort of they have a lifelong love story. I mean, they've been together since they were in high school, and they're best friends, and they do chit chat quite a bit. And that piece, I really knew when I started to draw that piece that it was going to be for them. And but there was a lot. It's a very small piece.
Okay.
um it's a 6 by 6, which is very small when you're cutting paper.
Yes.
And I got really excited, and it was one of those pieces I didn't really have it all the background conceived. And so it went through a lot of transition, but what I ended up with just basically makes me smile. Yeah, I'm very, very happy with it. Yeah, it's my favorite piece right at the moment.
Wow. And then
Yeah.
what is your latest piece?
So my latest piece is for a group show that launches next month at Friendly City Co-op here in Harrisonburg. It's a 10 by 10 show, and the idea is, what does the co-op mean to you? And for me, the co-op means good food, and good food means good friends. And my girlfriend in North Carolina with the gardens, she used to have these large summer parties. Her and her husband, they would have these parties, and there would be all kinds of people, and there'd be great food, and there'd be lots of music and lots of dancing and lots of laughing. And that particular collage started from a photograph. And so I kept the one image. The one image is my goddaughter as a teenager, and I created my girlfriend. I flipped out the other person that was in the photograph, and put my girlfriend in. And I really didn't even have a reference. I didn't use a reference photo to create her. And I think it's the first time in maybe 7 or 8 years that I've actually collaged people's faces.
Wow. Yes.
um, that was sort of fun to revisit that. There's no birds. There's no birds or animals in collage. But it was really fun. I'm really happy with it. So
Good. Um, so can you tell me what is, since we're winding down a little bit, where can everyone find you on socials?
so I do have an Instagram account, and it's bonniemf.art is how you can find me. It's,
Okay. And
now
then,
I must admit, I'm in the middle of creation, so there hasn't been a lot posted lately, but I normally try to put everything up uh, when I
yes.
can.
And you have two shows. Show, talk about them, where they're at, where we need to see you.
Friendly City Co-op launches the first Friday in June. I'm sorry, I don't remember what that date is. But
Okay.
Yep, all month. So you can always stop by and while you do some good shopping. The other show, the solo show, is going to be at the Gaines Group. They're architects. They're located in the depot in Harrisonburg. It's a very small, it's a very historic old building. It's a very small space, which just I love. And the opening night for that is August 7th.
Awesome. It was a pleasure to speak with you, Miss Bonnie. I loved this conversation.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I hope everyone comes out, show some love to you for your get some more likes. Go follow Bonnie and go see some shows here in Harrisonburg. Come visit because First Fridays is fantastic here in Harrisonburg.
It truly is. It's an amazing evening because it's a very strollable city and there's a great diversity in the art scene.
Yes. So it was a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah.
for being my first guest.
Oh, it was a pleasure to help you out. Thank you
Yes.
for inviting me.
So I will talk to you later then.
Okay. Bye bye.
Okay.